Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that honestly, it just defies all logic, all probability, and frankly, human comprehension. We're unpacking the absolutely unbelievable and deeply emotional journey of Tsutomu Yamaguchi. Now, this isn't just your standard historical recounting. We're looking at the absolute extremes of human survival and internal resilience. It's a story so terrifying, so mind-blowing that even decades later, it sounds completely made up. But I can assure you every single word of what we're about to cover is real. Okay. Let's dive into this. I want you to just take a second and really imagine something for me. What if you survived the absolute worst, most destructive nuclear attack in the history of humanity? Just think about the sheer terror, the devastation, the totally impossible odds of making it out of there alive. Now, imagine surviving it not just once, but twice. It feels like an impossible, crazy hypothetical, right? Well, for one man, this unimaginable scenario became his actual living nightmare. To truly wrap our heads around this, we have to put ourselves in the historical atmosphere of August 1945. Picture this. The Second World War is finally nearing its bloody end, but Japan is just utterly devastated. Cities are getting hammered by constant, relentless attacks from the sky. The national tension was massive, just this heavy, suffocating blanket over everyday life. People were exhausted, they were starving, and living in constant fear. Yet even with all this going on, absolutely no one on Earth could have predicted that the world was about to see a weapon unlike anything in human history. Right in the middle of this chaos, we find our focus for today, Tsutomu Yamaguchi. He wasn't a soldier or some high-ranking government official. He was just a regular 29-year-old naval engineer working for Mitsubishi. He'd been sent to Hiroshima on a business trip, and after a few really long, grueling months of work, he was finally packing up to go home. He was totally exhausted, missing his wife and his infant son, and literally just trying to get back to his normal life in Nagasaki. And this brilliantly illustrates how fast reality can just shatter. The morning of August 6th started out completely normal. We're talking clear skies, kids were walking to school, people were clocking in for their shifts. Tsutomu was just taking a walk toward the shipyard. And then, at exactly 8:15 a.m., the United States dropped Little Boy. A light brighter than the sun ripped right across the sky. In a fraction of a second, the entire world practically exploded, turning a totally mundane morning routine into a literal waking nightmare. Just 3 kilometers. When the very first atomic bomb ever used in warfare detonated, Tsutomu was less than 3 kilometers away from the epicenter. I mean, let that sink in for a second. Less than 3 kilometers from ground zero of an atomic blast. That's essentially a short walking distance. The immediate horror of that moment, it's honestly beyond words, but the historical accounts paint an absolutely visceral picture. The explosion was instant. A brutal, unimaginable heat wave literally erased the buildings around him. Tsutomu was violently thrown to the ground. His eardrums ruptured from the pressure, plunging this whole apocalyptic scene into this eerie, terrifying silence. He was severely burned on his upper body and completely disoriented. When he finally managed to stand up, he was looking at the end of the world. A ruined city of fire, thick smoke, and bodies covered in ash. Trying to process an impossible world-ending weapon while standing in the middle of that destruction, it's just horrifying to even think about. He ended up spending the night completely surrounded by chaos and ruins. But the very next day, despite being badly injured, burned, and in deep, profound shock, Tsutomu made a decision that just blows my mind. He decided he had to get back to his family. In this incredible testament to human resilience, and honestly just a desperate love for his wife and child, he navigated this apocalyptic wasteland and actually managed to board a train. Miraculously, parts of the Japanese railway system were still running. So, wrapped in bandages and burning up with a fever, he started the agonizing trip back home. Fast forward to August 9th. He arrives in his hometown of Nagasaki, barely able to put one foot in front of the other. He's covered in bandages, he's got a high fever, and he is deeply, deeply traumatized. But, get this, instead of going straight to the hospital, or even just going home to his own bed, he reports directly to his Mitsubishi office. It's almost unbelievable. He goes straight back to work. He felt this overwhelming sense of duty to tell his bosses exactly what he had just witnessed in Hiroshima. So he's standing in his office in Nagasaki, and his coworkers are just looking at him like he's lost his mind. I mean, how could one single bomb destroy an entire city? It sounded like science fiction. And right at that exact moment, as he's desperately trying to explain the total destruction of Hiroshima, the impossible happens. Another blinding flash of light rips through the sky, another gigantic explosion. The United States had just dropped the Fat Man bomb right on Nagasaki. The air literally turned into fire all over again. So the crucial point here is two. 2 times. Tsutomu Yamaguchi endured 2 apocalyptic, city-erasing atomic bombs in the span of just 3 days. He was in blast radius in Hiroshima, survived, traveled all the way home to Nagasaki, was in the blast radius again, and somehow miraculously survived again. There's just no way to comprehend those odds. But, survival is a really complex thing. Yes, his body lived, but his mind was plunged into a deep internal abyss. He had to grapple with this crushing, overwhelming weight of survivor's guilt. The trauma wasn't just the physical blasts, it was the absolutely horrific things he saw. He was haunted by the memories of burned skin, the crying children, human shadows literally scorched right onto stone walls, and that heavy, deafening silence that follows absolute destruction. He described his survival as a terrifying mix of luck and destiny, being forced to live with the memories of thousands who died right next to him while he somehow inexplicably escaped. While the blasts themselves were over in seconds, the fallout was basically a lifetime sentence. He didn't just dust himself off and walk away. He spent decades battling severe physical pain, extreme weakness, and chronic illnesses directly caused by the massive doses of radiation he absorbed. And even beyond the intense physical toll, he carried an incredibly heavy psychological burden. Can you imagine looking into the fires of a nuclear hell, not once, but twice? But here is where Tsutomu's story goes from just survival to absolute staggering resilience. He flat out refused to let the horror consume him. Despite the agonizing pain, despite the immense trauma, he pushed forward. He raised his family. He eventually went back to work. And perhaps most importantly, as the years ticked by, he found the immense courage to start publicly sharing his impossible story. He realized the world desperately, urgently needed to understand what a nuclear blast actually does to people on the ground. Now, believe it or not, for a long time, people actually doubted him. It just seemed way too incredible to be true. How on earth could one human body and mind survive 2 atomic bombs? It completely defied all known logic. But those decades of doubt finally came to an end when the Japanese government officially recognized Tsutomu as a Niju Hibakusha, a double survivor of both attacks. After carrying this impossible, lonely truth in silence for so many years, getting that official recognition brought a huge sense of vindication, firmly cementing his unique place in human history. And once he had that official platform, Tsutomu transformed into a vocal, totally unwavering symbol for peace. His entire focus became singular. His lifelong message to humanity is perfectly wrapped up in his plea. No one else should ever experience the nuclear horror. He took his deepest, most painful memories and used them to advocate tirelessly for nuclear disarmament. And he argued from a place of unimaginable authority, right? Because he was literally the only man who truly knew what it meant to survive it twice. He warned us all that humanity must never, ever unleash these weapons again. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it contrasts our view of history. It's so easy to read textbooks and view atomic bombs as these distant, abstract events, right? They just get reduced to cold dates, strategic military maneuvers, and statistics. Millions dead, cities erased. But Tsutomu's story forces us to actually confront the human reality of it. Wars happen to real people. Tsutomu was just a regular guy. He had a family, he had dreams, he had genuine fears, and he was suddenly caught up in the most terrifying nightmare humanity has ever engineered. Tsutomu continued to fight, to live fully, and to share his incredible story right up until his final days. He passed away in 2010 at the amazing age of 93. I mean, despite everything his body went through, he lived a remarkably long life. But his legacy is obviously so much more than just his age. He knew exactly what the end of the world looked like, and he dedicated the rest of his life to making sure the rest of us never have to see it ourselves. He left us with a powerful, urgent warning about what we are capable of destroying. We've explored the unimaginable facts, the deep internal trauma, and the incredible resilience of Tsutomu Yamaguchi today. But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty heavy personal question. What would you have done if you had lived through the sheer, unimaginable terror of an atomic blast, only to literally step into another one 3 days later? Could you have found the strength to move forward? Could you have found the capacity to advocate for peace after experiencing the ultimate destruction? It's a tough question for sure, but it's one his unbelievable life demands we ask ourselves. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.